We had 4 traffic circles coming in, and they were angry about it, thinking that my job was to try to make people less angry.
Right.
Said, okay, tell you what, we'll take one of them out, and we'll only do 3.
Compromise, the classic split the baby routine.
Split the baby routine. And what I found out is what we got out of it is they didn't end up being any less angry, and we ended up having a less good project out of the deal.
So is your advice, people are going to be mad and like push through it, do the right thing, and afterwards they will realize, oh, this is fine.
They may not realize this is fine, but most people push us to do complex things, right? And we have to figure out how to sort through all of those types of things. And I think my biggest advice is something's got to be more important than keeping votes.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
I'm gonna go full NIMBY on you here.
Okay, save it for after I introduce the episode.
No, we're going this way first.
Oh, we're going this way.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go full NIMBY on you and tell you this. Right here, for every other mayor in the history of our city,
Okay.
right here was a mayor's only parking spot.
Okay.
And it got uprooted under this current mayor
You lost your parking.
to build a protected bike lane.
You destroyed your own parking.
That's my NIMBYest, that's the NIMBYest thing I have to say to you.
So we're in downtown St. Paul on the Wedge Live
Paul.
podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Joining me is Mayor Melvin Carter.
And John doesn't like protected bikeways.
Gonna show me around. I don't know what I'm doing down here. My first question is, how do I get from Summit Ave into downtown St. Paul? Google Maps was sending me all over the place.
You just make a right.
You just
Go all the way to the end of Summit Ave and make a right, and you'll basically be downtown. It sounds like it sent you on a bum ride.
It sent me down Dale to Grand, and then a sign that said, do not enter. You've been at this a while, Mayor. You're running for re-election.
Yes, sir.
Why keep doing it? You were first elected to the council in 2008. Like, politics can beat you down
It can.
and crush your spirit. You still seem to have a lot of energy for this. Like, what is left to do? Like, you have to be motivated to do something to stick with it, or something's wrong with you.
Or something's wrong with you. I'm not arguing that nothing's wrong with me, first. We have been hit, we have to walk. We have been hit with kind of one thing after the next. And that's made it traumatic, and that's made it challenging. From a global pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, the civil unrest we saw after that, the trauma and chaos of 2 Trump presidencies now, or 1.25 Trump presidencies now, a cyber attack. I mean, we've just seen kind of one thing to the next, and it's the biggest drug epidemic of our lifetime in the opioid crisis, and that's there's always a new challenge. And I haven't seen a day yet where the work that we do hasn't felt really, really important.
So you've already updated your website, I noticed, to include the cyber attack as one of the big challenges. You mention it now. Like, where does that rank on
The campaign website says the cyber attack?
Yeah, it already has the cyber attack
didn't know
on
that.
it as the list you just gave me. It has those things. So where does it rank on the list of things you've had to deal with?
It's right up there. In a city this big, there's always something's going to happen every day that I didn't major in. And so, whatever it is, I have to trust my team. I have to be willing to learn. I always say one of my most important jobs is knowing that on any given day, most of the people in my conference room probably know more about whatever crisis we're facing than I do. The intriguing thing to me about the cyber attack is that, we've been through a pandemic that sort of stopped everything, forced us kind of away from other people and onto our computers. In some ways, the cyber attack felt a lot like the pandemic because it stopped so many things and it was so disruptive. But in some ways, it was the opposite because it forced us off of our computers and to one another. So I don't know that they're all on one continuum. They're just all very, very different. And they're all critically important to get right. And so, for better or for worse, we've got a lot of experience being able to tell you that nobody can get you through a crisis like City of St. Paul public employees can.
How do you get around the city day to day? You got a driver? You got? How do you get around?
Yeah, usually I'm riding because we are popping in and out of one place to the next. So work day, I end up riding around a lot, but I also probably cover more of the city on foot than most people because I enjoy running in my spare time. So that's, getting out and running. I run every neighborhood, I run every lake, I run all the trails and stuff like that. And just seeing the city on foot like that gives you a perspective that you can't get in a car. It's really interesting. So you mentioned my first campaign was 2007. In the middle of that campaign, I was reading an article about how the oil companies just keep jacking up the price of oil, not because their costs were increasing, but because they just liked to have more of our money. And I don't like being backed in the corner. So we did this thing that we call Melvin's Miles, where I said I'm going to cover so many miles by foot, so many miles on bike, and so many miles on transit over the course of the year. And we asked folks to sponsor a mile. And it was incredible to me the way I got to see the city. Just kind of, before that I had never really tried to get around, use bike as a mode of transportation. And it was just amazing to me that, you see the potholes, you see the cracks in the sidewalks, you see the neighborhood businesses, you see the challenges, you see transit in a way that you just never will in a car.
Is Summit Avenue, is that like a taste of things to come, the conflict there? In Minneapolis, we've had a lot of fights over transportation, and I feel like maybe we've been inoculated against the worst of it because it's normal now. But are you anticipating some big fights on transportation as you redo streets and redesign them?
I am anticipating discomfort. I think I have learned that people are uncomfortable with change, and even good change is change. So it makes us uncomfortable. And one of the things that I've learned is if we're not uncomfortable, then we're probably not changing that much. Right. And one of the oddest parts of being mayor is that the people who would be loudest about feeling underserved by all the ways things have always been done are also the ones who get loudest to protest when you do anything different.
Right.
So I do anticipate us having to challenge ourselves to be uncomfortable and to challenge our kind of understandings of what the norms are and what the norms should be and what the norms can be in our community. And ultimately, the reason I first ran for city council, and it's the reason I stay involved in this work, is it always feels like whatever the topic is, it's a big fight between the folks who kind of pine for what St. Paul was or what Minnesota was or what America was in the 90s or the 80s or the 60s or the 1800s or whenever it is, and the folks who feel like, no, what if we move forward? What if the biggest future for the city is out in front of us? Some is actually really kind of funny because people, are advocating against our protected bikeway that we have got planned on the basis of historic preservation. Well, bikes were on Summit before cars were, so it sort of depends on what you call history and when you stop it, which is why, to me, our progress always has to be forward. So I do understand that people are uncomfortable, and at some level, I think we have to make space for people to be uncomfortable, right? I don't think people dislike change because they're bad people. I think people dislike change because they're people.
Right.
And sometimes we say, oh, get over it, this is gonna be fine, you're just a NIMBY, or you're just a this, or you're just a that. And that probably doesn't actually help our cause. One of our goals is to say, hey, talk me through what exactly you're uncomfortable about, talk me through exactly what you're concerned about. Maybe you're concerned about the city ripping up 3,000 trees. I'd be concerned about that too if it were true, but it's not, and I can show you why. And so that's our goal, to be able to just kind of walk people through.
You ever get to the point where you feel like you have explained why it's not going to take 900 trees out or 3,000 trees out, and they persist? You ever get frustrated? Like, no, we're not here to take all the trees. I'd be a terrible person and a terrible mayor if that was my my objective here.
That's right. No, it does get frustrating, and I try, and I'm not perfect at it. I try to exercise my patience and exercise, our job is to continue to walk people through that. I work for the people who are uncomfortable with that change. And at some level, you know, the future they're holding me accountable for. How you doing? I'm well. Good to see you guys. Just taking a ride through the best city on the planet. Absolutely. Good to see y'all out. Take it easy.
I'm John. Hello.
This is John. I will. It's good to see you. Have a great day.
We're making sure everyone who recognizes you also learns my
Also
name.
knows John. Yeah, that's right. Don't just say hi to Melvin.
Do you have a favorite recent transportation project where you can point to and say, don't worry, it's all going to be fine. It's going to be like this?
You know, I've been doing this work for a while, and one of the amazing things is the sun just keeps on rising. You know, no matter how bad we think something or terrible something might be, I think one of my favorite things is the work we did to rebuild Ide Mill Road, because that's something that has been a crippling challenge for City Hall for a generation. I mean, it's been an unresolved thing forever, and it's been this big, huge fight, and we made a move to reconstruct it, to create a protected bikeway down there, an amazing space down there, and the sun just came right back up, and it's a part of our norm, and our public works guys aren't down there all summer trying to fill potholes all year,
right.
And they can spend some of that time filling potholes on our blocks, and it's just a normal part of everyday life. It's not even a lightning rod anymore.
So we're having an election in Minneapolis too, have you heard?
I think I read something about that.
Rent control is a constant topic, both here and in Minneapolis. We haven't done it yet. You have, and we are constantly pointing at you and saying, some really want it, and some are pointing at St. Paul and saying, no, not like that, don't do it, using you as a cautionary tale. Do you have advice for Minneapolis on what you have been through here in St. Paul?
You know, I don't pretend to know what any other city should ever do. I know there's lots of people who know Minneapolis better than I do, and folks who know biking better than I do, kind of trying to figure some of that stuff out. So, you know, I won't pretend to know what Minneapolis should do. I will say that, you know, we can't say that we've got it all figured out, or that the status quo that we're at in St. Paul is where we want to land. I think we got in a much better place with the exemption that we passed this spring to exempt new construction from it. I think everybody knows something new has to happen, something different has to happen with regard to housing, and so that's our goal, is to kind of do something different. You know, I see, you know, a lot of folks who fashion themselves as advocates, and the goal is either to make as little happen as possible or to make as much happen as possible, and we end up, I think, wrestling with extremes. And one of the kind of challenges for me, and you know, one of our jobs in City Hall is, I think, to be stewards of balance, of the type of balance that keep communities in balance and stable and able to kind of thrive and operate moving forward. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with the I'm out of breath. We just came up a hill, in fairness, but that's what we're trying to accomplish with the exemption for new construction, so that we can kind of tell developers from all over the planet, come put, you know, investment in the city. And that's going to be exempt from this thing, but while we maintain a stable environment for renters. But that's something I think we should always keep our eye on. I think the biggest thing is when you have a complex issue like public safety, like housing, like fentanyl, anybody who tells you that there's kind of one magic thing that's going to solve, one simple thing that's going to solve a big complex issue, it's probably not that simple.
So another thing we share is the aftermath, the fallout, the trauma from George Floyd's murder.
That's right.
And what are the lessons you learned from that? Okay. Got a little dicey there, man,
Yeah.
Mr.
No,
Mayor.
I know. This is a construction space. This is not we're going to jog back over to another one of our bike avenues here on Charles. All right, hopefully John will fast forward when we run up hills.
Do you feel like podcasting while exercising is a truth serum?
It's some kind of serum. It's some kind of something, John. Woo!
Oh, more hills.
I want to see how bad you want this interview.
Heavy traffic and a hill?
That's right. Don't worry, we'll get back to We would have gone straight to another bike lane, except there's some construction there right now.
I'm keeping the mayor safe. I have the traffic side.
It's true. Shortly we'll be out of this.
Woo!
All right, hopefully John's gonna edit our out of breath climb up the hill.
Woo!
Okay, in full disclosure, I don't know what route they sent you,
It could not have been this.
but what that tells you is I know where our bike infrastructure is without a memo.
This kind of campaign the mayor is running, he's got people who pick his bike route and he hasn't memorized it.
That's right. I don't even know. But I know where our bike infrastructure is without a memo. I don't need somebody to tell me where to bike in this city.
You've memorized the map.
Memorize the map, that's right. All right, I'm assuming you're editing and
I will edit out most of our climbing. I will keep in the parts where I go, woo!
ready?
Yeah, we go. So,
Look
lessons,
at that. Charles Avenue Bikeway.
we're on it.
That's where we're going. All right, what was the question?
Question was lessons of the post-George Floyd era for local government. Give me some deep wisdom.
I was on some national news show after George Floyd was murdered, and they asked me what we were going to do different in St. Paul because this happened, or now that this happened. And I told them, in a word, nothing. And they were surprised. And I told them, no, we're not going to do anything different. I think the most important thing you have to know about the murder of George Floyd is how historically unsurprising it is. And so that is to say that everything I can think of that needs to be done different because that truth exists, we started doing before George Floyd was murdered. And I say that to say, I think what made people so mad wasn't just at the face value, the sight of another unarmed black man killed at the hands of law enforcement. I think what made people so visceral, obviously that is upsetting, and the trend and the pattern is, but I think it became a symbol of all of the ways, all the different ways in which people feel like and see and experience every day. I used to live in this red house. Experience every day these systems that we pay into, these systems that our property taxes and our income taxes support, feeling like instead of helping us raise our children, they've got their knee on our neck. And I think it would be a mistake to just see that as simple as policing. I think people see that as housing. I think people see that as economics, as jobs. I think people see that as literally all of the above, right? We can bail out. We can rally our resources to send $1 billion overseas for a war. We can rally our resources to bail out big businesses, but we never have enough money to help people out. And so that's why part of our goal is to just not just sort of repeat all the old hats of government. One of the things I ask people all the time, I'm a big fan of crowdsourcing. And I ask people all the time, we're going to come back down Summit to Grand, so I'll show you, we'll answer that question too. But one of the things I've been asking folks is to crowdsource two definitions. One, what's the definition of a precedent? And people often say that's the way things are always done, the way we're used to things being done. And my second question is, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We expect different results, so we have to try different things. And so, for example, here in St. Paul, we start every child born with $50 in a college savings account. We're the first city in America to use public funds to pilot a guaranteed income. We have this thing called the Inheritance Fund, which helps low-income residents who are descendants of families who got uprooted to build the freeway in our Rondo neighborhood or in our West Side Flats neighborhood, continue to build home ownership or wealth creation through home ownership. And so right now, one of my favorite things, we took $1 million in American Rescue Plan funding and did essentially the same thing with it that private companies do all the time. We leveraged it, $1 million, to buy and eliminate over $100 million that our residents owe in medical debt. And these are all things to be able to demonstrate to our community. This isn't just a city that is good at filling potholes and plowing snow and responding to 911 calls. This is a city that's committed to finding new ways every year to make you and your family's life a little bit easier. And so one of the, I think, phrases that I find most offensive in this work is when people look at work like that, critical work like that. John, I can introduce you to a woman in St. Paul who walked up to me after an event and said she's a 4-time cancer survivor, but she was still suffering from cancer treatment bills until she was a part of our medical debt reset. And we hear people run against me with saying things like, that's not the job of city government, which is saying she should still be stuck under those bills, which is saying those family owners shouldn't be able to build wealth through home ownership, because if we don't do it, nobody else is gonna do it. And so that frustrates me, and I think it fails the logic, both that we learned in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and in the aftermath of the pandemic.
I'm sure you've been following what's happening in Los Angeles, DC, the incident on Lake Street in Minneapolis.
Yep.
With ICE raids, mass federal agents, people rightly concerned and in a little bit of a panic over it. Like, what do you do if that kind of stuff comes to St. Paul? Like, do you dispatch the police to do crowd control in those situations to keep people safe? Do you stay out of it entirely?
Again, I don't want to hypothesize or speculate about things that have happened in other cities, because there's always more to the story than we see on Twitter. I will say, I think you missed a part of it, John, in that I think the assassination of Melissa Hortman is a part of that story as well, because, and I haven't really heard anybody talking about this, but they were murdered by someone who had a mask on representing himself as law enforcement. And so it's really, really, really dangerous for us to have people in our community representing themselves as law enforcement, but operating without being willing to show their face, willing to show their badge in unmarked vehicles, willing to show a warrant. That's super dangerous for them, for us, for our officers, for everybody involved, not just new Americans in our community. And so that's something that we're doing everything we can to try to think through how we oppose that, how we stop that, whether that's through the court or through any other practice that we can. But ultimately, we're pretty clear, and I think our officers and every city employee is pretty clear that there's no city employee. Not only is there no city employee's job, whose job it is to enforce federal immigration policy, but it's very specifically everybody's job not to enforce federal immigration policy. Like, my house was broken into when I first ran for mayor. And my neighbor saw these guys he didn't know in my backyard and shot me a text instead of calling 911. Because, and what he said was he wasn't, if they were my friends or my cousins or something, he didn't want to, get them in trouble, or he didn't want to create a situation that turned out to be a negative situation.
Right.
All that to say is, if your neighbor doesn't feel comfortable calling 911 in an emergency, you're less safe. And so we can't serve anybody if we can't serve everybody. And so that's one of the reasons why we're so committed to that separation ordinance that we have. We just got passed by one of our brand new garbage trucks in the city from the work that we did to reorganize hauling in the city.
That reminds me, there was that big fight over the
We'll get there.
We'll
get there.
Okay.
All I have to say is I think our employees are well attuned. Again, there seemed to be some DEA aspect to what happened in Minneapolis. So I don't know the specifics of all of that. And it is possible that the work of balancing those goals I just described interact at some point with the work of being able to say, as we do, if you shoot a gun in our city, if you deal drugs in our city, if you are victimizing people in our city, if you're taking advantage of people in crisis in our city, we're going to find you and hold you accountable to the highest extent of the law. And that's where I think some stickiness comes in. And I doubt that there's any one kind of, cover-all approach that we'll be able to stick to, which is why I think it's important to share our values and to communicate really clearly with folks what we are and are not doing and when we are and are not doing it.
So I talked to the Ward 4 candidates.
Wait, your job is easier than mine. You just have to ask questions and then ride.
Yes. Do you need a breather?
No, I'm good. Let's go.
You are the
I just
athlete.
wanted to complain.
You are the athlete.
That's right.
I don't run.
A formerly elite, right.
Are you finding running okay in the smoke? Are you having to cut back on your running because of all these nasty smoke in the air days?
I'm having to cut back on my running because of the cyber attack, not because of smoke. So fortunately, I haven't been able to run anyways.
Okay, so I talked to the Ward 4 candidates, and a big issue in Ward 4 is the Snelling and University intersection where the old CVS closed. So it's not like shootings and murders, it's livability issues.
That's right.
Right, it's addiction and homelessness.
Exactly right. That's exactly
and
right.
one of the candidates was like, we need more police here, dispatch more police to this area. Basically we need to have zero tolerance for antisocial behavior. And do you feel like you're on the right track to addressing that?
I'll repeat what I said earlier. I've learned really well that simple solutions to complex problems usually don't work. It's usually not that simple. It's usually not that easy. I do agree that we need more law enforcement presence in that area. And we're actually in the process of putting some of that together. I think we need some interventions to address the built environment in that area. And we're in the process of putting that together. Zero tolerance is always a great tweet and a great kind of line. But those types of, every situation is different. And zero tolerance policies lock you into an approach that treats every situation as though it's the same, which doesn't make for effective solutions. So I think we need an all of the above strategy there. I'm really proud of the all of the above strategy that we took with regard to gun violence. We've driven gun violence way down in this city. And a couple of years ago, we said, you know what? We're not just gonna say we don't tolerate gun violence, we're gonna invest that way. And so we launched an initiative to say, any gunshot wound in our city, we've historically had about somewhere around a 90% case clearance rate for homicides, which almost doubles the national average. But at the same time, I think at the time we had about a 27% case clearance rate for non-fatal shootings. And one of the things you find out is most cities don't have a lot of people shooting guns. They have a few people shooting guns a lot. And if we can catch somebody shooting in September, then we can know they're not shooting in October and November.
Do you know what that's about? Why St. Paul is famous for solving murders at an extremely high rate. Have you analyzed that? Do you know what that's about so you can keep it that way?
I think ultimately that's about, we're trying to hear. I think ultimately that's about, I'm gonna show you one of the biggest mistakes I made on the council. Ultimately, I think that's about the investment that we make to solve them. We put our officers take a homicide personally, and they stop at nothing, and they spare no expense to make sure that if we lose a life in our city, we're gonna hold somebody accountable and give some relatives some answers. We hadn't taken that same approach to non-fatal gunshot wounds. And all I have to say is, today, if somebody gets injured by gunfire in our city, we'll see the exact same response that we would see if it was a homicide. And that's what's been helpful to us driving gunfire way down, alongside the work that we do to intervene and break cycles every chance we get, right? We've learned, for example, that if two neighbors get in a fight and gunshots ring out, one goes to the hospital, one goes to jail, but then they get out and they're still neighbors and they're still mad and somebody's gonna shoot again. So we've learned to relocate somebody. We've learned to care for the families. We've learned to go to the hospital at midnight on a Thursday and intervene with the family and say, like, what do you need? How do we prevent some kind of retribution shooting? All that to say, we've built this like really enormous infrastructure, this all-in approach on gun violence. And that's, I think, the type of approach that we need. That's the process that we're working to replicate in the Midway and around the opioid crisis.
Do you ever read Reddit, the St. Paul subreddit?
I do not, sorry.
So I get served posts from the subreddit. I'm not a member, obviously. I'm not in St. Paul.
Do you recommend it?
I don't recommend it. They're very negative on you in a way that's kind of weird, because in the Minneapolis subreddit, they're negative on the city council. They blame the city council for everything.
Got it.
In St. Paul, I mean, it's not universal, but it seems weirdly tilted against you based on
right?
my public impression of you.
Is that right? I'll have to get on there.
What a nice man is what I think. What
Well,
a good, smart man.
Can you tell them? Get on there and like.
I'm a lurker, not a poster. But it's like, I don't know, I guess the case is you've been mayor for 8 years. We have livability concerns. Downtown isn't what we want it to be. Like, despite all the problems, can you respond to the St. Paul subreddit to explain why another 3 years in this term?
I doubt I can respond to the St. Paul subreddit.
I'll
but I
post
can
the video there if you want me to.
That's right. Let me say this. When I was on the city council, we spent a lot of time talking about how we needed more property owners downtown. We spent a lot of time talking about how the situation downtown was unsustainable. And frankly, we spent a lot of time talking about one particular building owner downtown who is our largest building owner, who systemically disinvested in his buildings. Those things were going to be the case when I got elected in 2018, or when anybody got elected in 2018. And those are things that are long-term challenges for the city that have to be addressed. It's one of the reasons why seeing those trends is one of the reasons why one of the first things that we did, I think my first year as mayor, we launched our Downtown Alliance, our St. Paul Downtown Alliance. We were the largest, when I got elected, we were the largest city in America to not have an independent like Downtown Alliance, Downtown Advocacy Group. So we launched that group. That group has been really helpful for us. I'm out of breath, we just came up a hill. We're going across the bridge. That group has been amazing for us, helping us draft our downtown strategic plan, our downtown development partnership, and we've now launched a downtown development corporation to help us lead some of that reinvestment work. So the truth is, you know, we're in a historically challenging moment. Good to see you. This is John.
He was nodding at me.
That wasn't, okay, got it, we're good. We're in a historically challenging moment right now that's exacerbated by the pandemic, and that's exacerbated by the sudden death of that property owner and the collapse of that whole portfolio. And I imagine that without elaborating on how, somebody in this race will tell you they could have prevented all of that from happening, maybe gone back in a time machine and prevented all of that from happening. But that's where the difference is between serving and running, is we've got to be able to come up with real viable solutions. We've got to come up with a real viable plan. And the truth is, go to the left. And the truth is, a lot of those plans, just the only thing we know at the beginning is they won't work the way we drew them up on our whiteboard. We're going to have to revisit them and reapproach them and think through what part of this is working, what part of this isn't working. You know, what part of our value proposition needs to be tweaked, and how do we adjust the work moving forward. So the truth is, I actually believe that we're in a really strong position moving forward. We've got investors from all over the country purchasing property and investing in our downtown, which we've needed forever. We are hosting big major events downtown, like the Yacht Club Music Festival. Let's go right here. Like the Yacht Club Music Festival, and also the World Juniors Hockey Championship, which we'll host downtown. So the world is seeing the promise of our downtown right now, more so than really ever before in my lifetime. I know that sometimes that's hard to see when you're right up on it, but I think there's nothing but opportunity, and it's one of the reasons why I'm excited to keep serving in this role, to help us kind of see ourselves through that chapter. So we're on Griggs.
Is this your mistake? Is this your biggest mistake?
This is. So you saw the traffic circles we came around?
Uh-huh.
When I was on the city council, we thought about turning this into a bikeway. And we put these traffic circles in, and there were people who didn't like them.
Right.
And they showed up in City Hall really angry. We had 4 traffic circles coming in, and they were angry about it. And I, thinking that my job was to try to make people less angry, said, okay, tell you what, we'll take one of them out and we'll only do 3.
Compromise, the classic split the baby routine.
Split the baby routine. And what I found out is what we got out of it is they didn't end up being any less angry. and we ended up having a less good project out of the deal.
So is your advice for new people in public service, elected officials or city staff, like people are going to be mad and like push through it, do the right thing, and afterwards they will realize, oh, this is fine?
They may not realize this is fine, but most people push us to do complex things, right? And we have to figure out how to sort through all of those types of things. And I think my biggest advice is something's got to be more important than keeping votes. And we've got to be thinking about how to position our city for the future. We've got to be thinking about how to position our kids for the best future. And we've got to be willing to get voted out if people don't come along with that. Now, I think the onus is on us to walk people through it and explain our thinking and things like that. Moving a community forward into the future just has to be a higher priority than staying in office. I think when we get those two priorities confused, that's where we kind of mess stuff up, you know what I mean? So I don't think the goal should be to not make anybody mad. Honestly, there are people in this community who, no matter what I do, if the sun rises in the east tomorrow, they'll be mad at me for it. And there are people who take that as like a chain that locks you in, because you're always trying to figure out, every day you wake up and the only thing you can think about is how to make somebody who's maybe committed to being mad less mad. And it gets in the way of thinking through like what's in the best interest of this community, what's in the best interest of this neighborhood, what's in the best interest of this city. Sort of being like a broker, an opinion broker, as opposed to like a policy leader.
Instead of a leader, you're just following the public sentiment, and
that's right. And hopefully you can guide public sentiment a bit.
Right.
And hopefully you can, make yourself accessible and available and talk people through why I believe that, honestly, based on all of the things that you want me to do, you don't just want me to not build a bike lane. You want me to expand our tax base. You want me to add green space in our city, et cetera, et cetera. You want me to add jobs and build housing and all those types of things. The grand portfolio moves us why I believe the grand portfolio moves us forward. Everybody won't agree with that, like I said, but hopefully more people do than don't.
I mean, I find it with park politics, especially people who are most exercised about park planning and what's going on at the park are the people who live next to the park.
That's right.
And the sentiment is, oh, don't change a thing. You want people to use this park? Never. But the large swath of the city probably would feel pretty good about that those changes, those amenities, being able to use that park, but they're not showing up to city council meetings or park board meetings because it's not top of the agenda.
That's right.
But it serves the most people.
That's right. No, that's right. And I think, honestly, our city has been held hostage for a long time by maybe a group of 24 people who we can count on to show up with megaphones. And every time we're going to Summit. Every time we completely change our plan, we build a big, enormous plan that we believe is in the best interest of the city, and then start taking out traffic circles because, a couple of people yelled at us. We're ignoring 300,000 people in favor of kind of those 24. There's we just passed my high school, Central High School, and there's a spot at Central. You walk up Lexington and then you sort of cut across the grass because the sidewalk goes up and around and back, right? And I think one of my best examples of good governance is the fact that somewhere along the way, the school board decided to just pave that shortcut. And what I tell my team all the time is like, if somebody had said we're gonna have a public hearing and invite the students at Central to a public hearing next Wednesday on optimal sidewalk alignment, they'd laugh, they'd ignore us, they'd go to soccer, and we'd never get their feedback. But 2,500 kids every morning know that it makes more sense to cut across that grass, and they're voting with our feet. We have to be able to learn how to see those cow paths. We have to learn how to be able to see those shortcuts and read it as our community members who may never show up in City Hall voting for their feet, and teach ourselves how to govern in a way that doesn't ask our residents to make strange decisions to follow our policies or to follow where the sidewalk is, but to literally pave the ground underneath our residents' feet. And so that's the approach that we try to take. I cut you off though, you were gonna ask me something, and I cut you off to tell you about my mistake.
I'm feeling pretty good about Minneapolis right now. I know it's 2025 and the country is on fire.
That's right.
And when I talk to people in Minneapolis who are paying attention to politics 24/7, they're kind of depressed because they're worried their candidates won't win and the other side will. But I mean, just my sense of the city, and maybe this is true in St. Paul too, is that things are looking up. If Trump doesn't tear us all down, things are looking up. Is that the vibe you're feeling in St. Paul?
I do. Not on Reddit and not on social media. But when I walk into a coffee shop or visit a school or go to a football game or something like that in the neighborhood, yeah, like we have an enormous amount of opportunity in front of us right now. Like I said, we have an unprecedented amount of economic development happening or in the queue right now, whether that's on the western side of town at the Highland Bridge development, on the eastern side of town at the Heights, in the middle of the Midway, the United Village, or downtown. We have just billions of dollars in economic expansion underway. And like I said, people from across the globe are recognizing it and increasingly saying, hey, this is the place I want to do my big major events. So yeah, I do think things are looking up. We've been through a lot. And I think when we look back on this moment, we'll find that we came through it a lot stronger.
So here's my take as a far-off observer. When I heard that you were timing your vetoes in a way that did not allow the council to override them, I'm like, what? How does that happen? How does the calendar work that way? And I don't want you to explain why it works that way necessarily, unless you want to.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. You can't time a veto. The only thing that you can time is when the council votes.
Right.
And so, you know, for example, in my budget, in the budget process last year, I sent the council a email, I think in November, saying, hey, I'm worried we're going to run out this clock. We're running out of time to do this. Let's take action sooner than later.
Right.
And that process dragged on. So what ends up happening is you can't time a veto. You know, there's 7 days. There's a 7-day window for any action the city council takes where a veto is even legally possible. And so if you take that vote less than 7 days before the legal deadline for a thing, then the clock runs out, you know. And so no, I'm not able to time that work that way. It's just so happened that some of those deadlines got ran up against. And so my hope is that we're timing all of the work more proactively so that we're not coming up against that and into deadlines like that.
So in Minneapolis, I don't think the city clerk would allow the calendar to get distorted in that way. Like, was it a weird budget year and that's why it got pushed back?
No, I think there were a lot of things. I mean, it was a weird budget year, and the budget cycles are just tougher than ever every year.
Like the council
right now.
pushed the calendar back this year, or is it always like this could happen because the calendar is always set this way? Like, was it a different calendar than in previous years?
It could conceivably happen. I'll tell you, when we had a majority of our council was in their first years, and so a lot of it we were sort of learning our processes and learning how to how to work together, in real time. So in general, and I've shared this with all of them, under our previous council and council president, our goal was always to be done with the budget negotiations by Thanksgiving.
Right.
Last year, I think we only started the budget negotiations like 2 days before Thanksgiving. And so that was what was making me anxious. And again, I'm either the week before Thanksgiving or the week after Thanksgiving, I sent an email saying, hey guys, we're gonna run out of time here on this. And just urging us to be a little more urgent with the pace and timing of our negotiations. So my hope is that we're beyond that chapter. There's headlines anytime we disagree, and the reason those headlines are so big is because we agree so much more, you know? And so, I try not to make a big, huge thing of, to the extent that we're gonna make a big, huge thing out of the 1 or 2 votes that I've disagreed with the council on over the past year. We've also gotten an enormous amount of stuff done together in cooperation. And I think there's nothing but opportunity for us to keep doing that.
So you're feeling good about your relationship with the city council?
Yeah, we've been able to do the things, like I said, it's their job to ask critical questions, and it's our job to be able to answer them. And so, for example, this time last year I said we're gonna exempt new construction from our rent stabilization ordinance. And I think a lot of people looked at that and thought it was impossible. and thought that we'd never be able to come to agreement on that. But we had a longer conversation over the course of a year, and we engaged and we answered questions. They asked tough questions, critical questions, and we answered them, and we got it done. I think that's the process working.
Do I recall correctly, are you a Twin Cities Boulevard skeptic, an opponent? How do you feel about that plan?
I am. I have asked for them to keep open the study process and to study everything. I understand the kind of some of the challenges, and you know, I'm not ignoring some of the challenges that some of the staff have brought forward around that. And you know, I would imagine nobody wants to just create a situation where we have more cars idling, you know, through the neighborhood. I've got a daughter, John, who has severe chronic asthma, and that's probably not completely unrelated to the fact that she grew up right next to the freeway. And so, you know, it's not an abstract thing in any ways for me, and that goes back to what I was saying about, you know, operating the balance and not just you know, advocating for the extremes. But we have titled this thing Reimagining 94, and I think from the beginning, folks have waited to watch and see if we really meant reimagining 94. And I think cutting off just being able to study something risks sending the signal that we didn't really mean reimagine. That said, like I said, I'm not advocating for the boulevard in any way because, like I said, I can't ignore some of those real kind of challenges or concerns that some of those staff have flagged. But I think we ought to respect it enough to just think it through. And the other piece that I've shared with them is, like, in 20 years in this work, I don't know that I've ever seen a sustained organizing effort with as much energy and persistence. Now, do you want to go down the hill or keep going straight? No, let's keep going straight. You asked me how to get to...
Yeah, okay,
all right,
let's go.
Let's keep going straight.
Straight, we're going straight.
We're going down the hill?
We're going...
All right.
I thought this was straight.
What'd you say?
I thought this was straight.
All right. We're committed now anyways.
Okay, we're going down this hill.
We're going down the hill.
Woo!
For the record, John is not out of breath going down the hill.
That is not my breath, that is the wind. All right, I successfully kept my hat on.
What'd you say?
I kept my hat on.
You're not wearing a helmet. That's what this interview should be about.
Yeah, I get scolded all the time. I'm trying to normalize, you know, casual biking.
Well, stay up on the wheels and normalize it.
Okay, that was for me.
That was for John. This is John. I'm Melvin.
Yeah, I've been disappointed how MnDOT seems to want to ignore the impact of the pollution. Like, maybe it's too hard. Maybe fixing that is just too hard, but they're unwilling to say all these people need to be poisoned and get, you know, lifelong diseases because we had to keep or expand this urban interstate that was a mistake to begin with, that we've apologized for.
Okay, you're right. All right, here we go. We're gonna turn and then we're gonna go that way and then jag back up. I see what you're saying. You're saying this is where you came to the Coes Road?
I think I took the next street over.
Yeah, make a left here. You didn't hand signal either. Were you not a Boy Scout?
I do the thing where I point one direction, I point the other. I don't do the like right angle signaling. It feels nerdy to me. I'm not a bike nerd. I noticed you do it. You do the right angle thing.
My Cub Master, just his voice.
Oh, do they teach you that?
They did. And we were very proud when we learned that, so. Woo! Oh. All right, John called me a nerd. I don't know how that, did they teach you that in interview school?
I'm a bully.
All right, out of questions. You weren't gonna ask me about the 50 new miles of bike lanes that we've built?
I might have asked you about why $395 million for a sports arena was a good use of public money. But feels mean.
No, it's an important question. I think it's a question a lot of people are wondering. And I think we're gonna land on a number a lot smaller than that. But all this economic development that we're in right here is centered around the Xcel Energy Center, or the Grand Casino Arena now, which helped to stimulate a lot of this. There's a lot, and this is one perfect area we're making it right. This is one exact area where, like, we have to think about kind of the balances. Very few residents just walk up to me out of the blue and say, "Hey, we got to find subsidy for this arena." But a lot of residents say, "Hey, I noticed my property taxes went way up last year."
Right.
The reason that happened, we increased our city levy by 6% last year, and the city portion of my property tax levy, of my property tax bill, went up by 20%. The reason that happened is because we've lost so much value downtown, and so we need major interventions to re-kickstart that momentum and to reset those values downtown, which is one of the reasons why we're investing so heavily into converting old offices into new housing. And in the context of all of that, the biggest idea, the biggest kind of wow factor we have in our portfolio downtown plans is right here, is this arena. This space hosts 2 million people a year. This space has a significant impact on our tax base. And our plan to respond to the loss of values that we've experienced downtown and the corresponding slingshot effect we've experienced on, it's not just the property tax bill that our residents receive, but it puts us into a crunch, because that means we're limited in our ability to increase property taxes, even to capture new growth. Let's make a left here. Okay. Even to capture new growth, because we know that any dollar we add to the property tax levy is going to have that whiplash effect on residential properties. And so, yes, I do think that that's worth public investment. I do think it's worth our public energy. I think it has to be a public priority. I don't think we'll end with the number that we started from with, but more to come where that's concerned. We're taking it right. I just did the nerdy
turn signal. So quickly, is it viable to expect nonprofits to contribute voluntarily? I've heard that idea put out as a potential solution to the property tax issue.
It's not it's not non-viable. Here, we can land at City Hall. It's not viable, but the key to what you just said is voluntary. We have to know that in an economy like we're in now, the amount that we get back through something like that would nosedive. We have to know that, most people watching this would probably receive an invitation to make a voluntary payment in the same way. And so I don't think that it's a viable way to fund absolutely critical city services that we have to be able to rely on the continuity of from one year to the next. We actually did a study of that, because it's one of the things that I said a lot in my first campaign for mayor. We did a study on it and found out that the potential there is a lot smaller than I initially thought that it was. But the overall question of how do we diversify our tax base, how do we diversify our revenue streams is really important. It's one of the reasons why we, for example, passed a 1 cent sales tax. That puts a significant amount of money, almost $1 billion, into our roads and our parks over the next 20 years without having to sit on the property tax levy. And it invites folks who come into the city to work or play or do whatever they want to do to be a part of the solution for the infrastructure that they use anyway. So things like that we've worked hard to expand or to diversify our revenue streams. That pilot, again, we studied it in my first term and found that it wasn't the pot of gold that we might have thought that it would be in the first place.
Well, Mayor Carter of St. Paul, thank you for biking me around the city. Thank you for spending so much of your day with me biking around.
This is fun. No, this is way better than my conference room. Can we stay out again?
This has been the Wedge Live Podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you, Mayor Carter, and thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you. The blast.
We are done.
This is going to be on TV?
YouTube.com/Wedge Live. You can bring it up on your TV if you have YouTube.
This This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.